We are back to go ahead and readhere the glass to the LCD on this Nexus 4. I'm just to show you the LOCA process on this one. I don't have a glass remover for the Nexus 4 yet, but it's pretty similar to removing the S3 or other glass off of a LCD, so you can check those videos out. I'm going to go ahead and use a little bit of isopropylene alcohol here, that's 90% proof, and just clean the glass, make sure there's no fingerprints or anything of that nature on it. You'll see that there are some smudges, not necessarily smudges, but streaks on the screen from using the alcohol, and that's totally fine. When you actually apply the LOCA glue to the LCD and the glass, those will actually disappear, as it will always have that wet look when you apply the LOCA glue. So I'm just going to go ahead and clean the LCD here as well, right before I go ahead and start putting the glue down to readhere the glass. I like to give nice long swipes down, so if there's any dust, we're actually pulling it all the way off of the LCD rather than just moving it somewhere else or in the middle. Just make sure that all the dust is off. We are looking good. You can see that those streaks are on there, but again, not a problem when we're applying this glue. Alright, so here's the glue that I'm using. You can really use any liquid optical clear adhesive that you buy, but I like this APS stuff. You can get it off of eBay. I think this tube's about 20 bucks for the big tube. You can get a smaller tube for about 5. It'll do one screen for you. This tube will do about 4 or 5. You also need a UV light. You can just get a gel salon UV light that'll cure like gel nails. You don't have to have anything too crazy to do this process. The goal is just to give it a good cure as you apply the LOCA glue. I'm just looking to make sure there's no dust in it. If there is a little bit of piece of dust in the glue that you put down or something near it, just go ahead and just brush it off. You can pull it out with a pair of tweezers or some other item that doesn't have dust attached to it, like a dental pick or something of that nature. We're going to let the glue kind of a little bit, roll around. The thinner it is, to me, it's actually easier to end up applying the glass to it. Let it thin out and just kind of set. Now, the hardest part of doing this LOCA repair on the glass is that when you adhere the glass at the very initial part, it seems like that's where you start to get air bubbles. So we'll put it down very, very, very slowly. What I'm doing here is I'm just rolling it back and forth a little bit, trying to get it a little bit thinner so it takes less effort of me to have to spread it once I put the glass down. So you can see that I made like an elongated X, and the reason behind that is we want the corners to get glue into them. That seems to be one of the hardest parts to get the glue to stay. Alright, we're going to go ahead and put our glass down here. And I'll use a dental pick to hold up on the side here. And I'll always put pressure down here at the bottom so it stays in place. We're slowly dropping the glass until it makes first contact down here at the bottom. The reason why we're going to put it down one side and then the next is if you let it lean onto it like this, then you get less air bubbles, different than if you were to drop it straight down. As this glue is a little bit thicker, can have ridges in it. If you have one sided here before the next and they meet in the middle, that creates an air bubble. So we're dropping this nice and slow. I like to use the mold. I got the mold for, I think it was like $15 off of eBay. That way I get a nice alignment. One of the trickiest parts of doing this is understanding how much glue to use. And one of the reasons why it's good to use the mold, especially with this type of LCD compared to maybe like an AMOLED, is if the glue seeps in behind the LCD, it'll give you a distorted look behind the light box on this. So using the mold really makes it so that doesn't happen. The glue will seep out and go onto the edges of the phone and then drip down the sides of the mold rather than dripping down behind and onto the light box. So that's really one of the reasons I try to use the molds in all of my repairs that I do. You notice a lot of it on iPhones and things of that nature. So I'm going to go ahead and just use my fingers to spread the glue out. I'm not pressing extremely hard at this point. I'm putting pressure on it to get the glue to expand. I start by pressing in the middle, and then as it needs to be, I'll press into the corners of where I need the glue to go. And you can almost direct it to a degree as it's a little bit thicker glue. So you can see that I'm trying to get it to go in this corner up here. It's already hit the top, so I'm putting pressure into the areas where I want the glue to actually expand to. So I want it to go down the sides of the phone, in the middle, and what you can do is also direct it. If you run your finger from the middle towards where you want the glue to go to, that can also help you direct the glue into the correct spot. So I'm pressing here to get the glue to go out. Now, it will take some time, and it looks like I used a little less glue than I should have to make it an extremely easy process, but no matter. Really, one of the goals is when you do this, you want the film of the liquid optical clear adhesive to be very thin between the glass and the LCD. So using the right amount of glue is key here. You want to make sure that all sides of the glass are put into the mold. There's no ridges, and they're all the same height. So I'm pushing the finger into the corners to get it to squish out. A little bit more glue from the center onto the sides. Help direct the glue where to go just a little bit. Have a little bit of patience when you're doing this, and sometimes you'll think that you didn't use enough glue. And if you give it a few seconds, the glue will eventually just make it to that corner. You can press also relatively hard on the glass at this point because the LCD is supported from behind. I'm not saying that you want to use all of your force or all of your weight, but it can use a little bit of extra pressure at this point. So just again using my finger to pull the glue into the corners where I want it to go. Now, using the correct amount of glue is also important when you try to remove this LCD from the mold as well. If you use an excessive amount and it just is everywhere, it makes it hard to get the LCD out of the mold. So if you have a ton of glue that's coming out of the edges of your glass and your LCD, try to clean it up with a cloth before you actually put it under the UV light to cure. That'll make your removal much, much, much easier. So you can see with a little bit of time that the glue is going into all of the corners of the phone. Now I like to really look at the corners, and it's hard for me to do on top of this workstation, so I might pick the LCD up and actually look closely at it. And I want to make sure that it's all the way in the corners. So you're spending all the time to remove the glass and put through the effort of gluing this down. You want to make sure that it looks great. Again, just pushing the glue into the corners. I just want to make sure that all the way in the little tiny corners there's no bubbles. So it's pressing in there. Now if you do get air bubbles, you can try to lift the glass back off and pop them with either tweezers or a dental pick. In some cases it's easier just to remove the glue and then reapply it again. So you'd have to remove the glue, you'd have to clean it with your isopropylene, the alcohol, the 90% proof alcohol, whatever cleaner you're using. Make sure it's nice and dust free again, reapply the glue, and then lay it down. I've had some LCDs where it's just difficult to get them to not have bubbles, and I've had to reapply the glue 2, 3, 4 times to get it to be perfect. So don't be afraid to do that. A lot of the big companies that have money that repair phones will actually use a vacuum system to pull the bubbles out, whereas I am a do-it-yourselfer and I just repair for fun on the side. So I don't have the $3,000 or $4,000 it takes to buy that vacuum machine. So I'd rather just spend $10 in glue and use a little bit more of my time to get the job done. Alright, we are looking good. The glue's all the way through all the corners. There's no bubbles underneath the LCD. So I've turned my black or my UV light on, and we're going to just slide the LCD underneath. Now, if you have the glue in the corners that's pulling up without pressure, that's fine. You just want to hold the LCD down as you slide it in. It only takes, maybe a minute, 45 seconds for this glue to really adhere. There's a little bit of a bubble coming up where at the bottom down here, if I don't apply pressure, that the glue doesn't stay into that corner, and that's fine. You would just need to make sure you hold it as you slide it underneath the UV light. So we're looking good. So I'm just going to put a little bit of pressure on it, make sure the glue stays in the corner. I got some glue on the LCD there as well. We're just going to slide it underneath, hold it down as I insert it in. And like I was saying, it only takes a few seconds to really get this glue to adhere. Now, as you're doing the mold, you don't want to put it in for too long before you remove it from the mold. You don't want the glue to become rock solid on the edges. So just put it in for a few seconds, get it to adhere nicely to the LCD and the glass. Maybe put it in here for 20 seconds or so. It's looking pretty solid. Alright. Again, just making sure that the glue is nice and cured, but not too far. And the reason why I say that is taking it out of the mold can be very difficult if you have excessive glue on the sides. I've had to use some heat in the past to remove it, a razor blade to remove it. And the reason why I keep using this mold is I really like the accuracy it gives me. So I'm going to use a razor blade to kind of cut between the LCD and the glue. Now, I'm not putting a ton of force in. I don't want to separate the glass from the LCD. I'm just cutting the glue that's in the mold holding it down. If you press a little bit of force on the back of the mold itself to pop the LCD out, be careful not to put too much force, as sometimes if you haven't cured the glue enough, it'll separate from the glass. I'm just checking to see if I can get some separation of the LCD here. I'm going to cut down the other side in between the mold and the glass. We're just going to press on it here. Looks like we still need a little bit of cutting on the side, see if we can't get the glue to separate just a little bit more. At this point, it's not necessarily like a glue, it's almost like a rubber, which is what I was looking for. Let's pull this excess of glue off here. Getting a little bit of play. I'm just going to try to cut in this thicker area right here. I think that'll help me separate it. Made it a little bit more on the opposite side. There we go. Alright. Like I was saying, it's putting a little bit of force, but I wasn't using a ton. Now that we've removed it, what we need to do is we need to clean around the edges where it'll be re-adhered into the frame. Now, I'm not going to do it in this video, but normally what I do is I'll clean all the glue off around the sides, make sure it's nice and clean, and then I'll bake the LCD again for about another 3 minutes. That way, I really get a good bond, but I also want to make sure that the glue is not hindering the adhesion when I try to put it back into the phone. So it's getting the nice corner of the rag, using some isopropylene alcohol, and cleaning down the sides of the LCD. Going all the way around. It can be hard to get in underneath the ribbon cable, which is why I picked it up, and I'm using it close to see exactly how much of that LOCA glue I can remove. It's looking pretty good. There's some glue down there. Just going to clean it up with that alcohol that I have. Alright, now I want to show you that it's still functioning properly, so I'm going to reconnect it into the back of the phone. And just go ahead and power it on. Looks good. Make sure that there's no bubbles anywhere. Make sure that it's all into all the corners. Want to double check the digitizer to make sure that it's functioning properly as well. Now if you found this video useful, go ahead and just like it for me. And I will try to attach a glass removal of maybe an S3 or a Note 2 that I've done, so you can see how I've removed glass on those ones. It's almost the exact same process, but a little different in reapplying the LOCA glue. Thanks again for watching the video, guys, and I'll see you on the next